Hi, my name is Brittany Frederick, and I'm a student employee here at the Career Center, and I work with student employment programs.
And I'm Steven Johnson, and I work with student employment programming, and I'm a graduate assistant.
Today, we're going to talk about communicating with professionals and supervisors. Take a second to think about your first job, whether it was here at ISU or somewhere else. What were some of the feelings you had before starting your job, and how prepared were you to start it? Do you feel like you were prepared professionally to start your first job?
We're going to show you a quick video on some of the ways that we can improve communication in the workplace.
In my line of work, where I work with corporate professionals and help them to advance their careers, a common topic of discussion is communication. If you struggle with communication, then this may also be you, where you're in a situation where you're talking to people and you find that the conversation is very unnatural, it's forced, and it doesn't really go anywhere. And you find that the other person is struggling to hold their interest in you, and you feel that there's something wrong with you because of the way that you're communicating to them. And this can easily happen in a situation where you're at a, let's say, networking event, and you have to talk to a group of strangers where you just feel awkward, you feel unnatural, and you're not able to really develop any connections with anyone. So today I'm going to teach you 4 steps that will really help you to improve your communication skills, whether you're in a social setting or in a professional setting, and so that you can feel more confident and at ease. Step number 1, listen intently. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can communication be about listening when really it's about talking? You assume that to improve your communication skills, it's really about your ability to speak, right? Well, yes and no. The key thing about communication is that if you're able to listen intently to the other person and you're able to hear what they're really saying beyond the words that are coming out of their mouth, you're going to be able to have more value to add to the conversation, because you're going to be able to say something that is beyond what it is that they're just talking about at a surface level. Listening intently doesn't just mean using your ears and hearing what the person is saying. It's really being able to get a sense of what they're feeling. It's being able to get a sense of really what they're trying to express, and maybe what they're not trying to express as well. So it's really about using your intuition as well, being able to read a person, hear the words that are coming out of their mouth, but also hear what it is that they're really trying to mean when they're talking about that. And whenever you can really do this exercise where you're really extending yourself in a way that you're really listening and paying attention to someone, they can feel that off of you, and automatically they feel that you're more engaged with them, and they're more likely to share and to talk to you and to feel comfortable around you. And that is a key part to being a good communicator. Step number 2, respond with phrases that relate to what that person is talking about. You can start off with phrases such as, "That's interesting because I can relate, because that's true, because." Starting your conversation with these types of words shows that you're interested and engaged in the other person. And so if you want people to be engaged and interested in you when you're communicating with them, you first have to give that energy. Saying things like, "That's true because," etc., 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 shows that you can relate and you can validate what the other person is saying. And that is what, as human beings, we're all looking to do, to be validated, to be heard by other people, and to feel connected to those that we're talking to. Step number 3 to improving your communication skills: tell stories. After the because part of your conversation, tell a story that relates to what that person is talking about. The story obviously has to have a point, and it has to be something that is in relation to what you guys are discussing. As I always say, a good story follows the same pattern as a movie. Think of any good movie you've watched, and when you can break it down, there are actually 3 key parts to the movie. And I call this SAR, an acronym that stands for situation, action, and results. The majority of the movie is made up of the situation, the setting up of the story, getting to know the characters, their stories, their situations, the things that they're dealing with, the issues that they're having to go through, and the situation, the setting that they're in. The second part of the movie is the action, where the good guy fights the bad guy. So you're actually seeing what are the steps that that guy is taking or that girl is taking to resolve the initial situation or the problem that they're dealing with. And the third part of the movie is the shortest in length, and it's simply the conclusion or the result. What ended up happening? When you can learn to tell your stories using this type of structure, it's going to make the other person feel more engaged, more interested in you and in your story, and it's going to help you to prove the point that you're trying to make as well. And finally, step number 4 to improving your communication skills: practice. This is something that so many professionals seem to overlook when they're going to any networking event or meeting people for the first time, and they know that they're going to have to meet these people and talk to these people. And that is to practice. Practice ahead of time what you're going to say. If you had an important presentation to do at work, you wouldn't just walk into the meeting and just be unprepared and talk on the fly. You would want to practice ahead of time. Well, in other professional and social settings, it also doesn't hurt to practice ahead of time. You want to have your stories ahead of time prepared so that when you do go ahead and communicate them, they're more fluent, they're more fluid, and they come off more naturally. Without thinking through and developing your stories, you won't succeed in your communication. So work on your communication skills by practicing on your own time, and then the next time that you have to go into a group meeting or group conversation or just a one-on-one conversation, you'll be able to communicate in a more natural and confident way. So there you have it, my 4 steps on how you can improve your communication skills, whether in a group or individual setting.
Now we're going to talk about communicating via email. Emails should remain professional. Avoid shorthand and slang, and be sure to use proper greetings and titles. For example, if your professor or someone you work with is a doctor, be sure that you give them the title of doctor when you're addressing them.
Email should not be super long. Keep information brief and concise. We do not want to write full paragraphs when writing an email. We want to keep it short and to the point. We also do not want to just email with one word, so make sure that we at least have complete sentences when we're using email. Proofread emails before sending them out. We want to make sure that the information that we're sending out is appropriate and accurate. We want to make sure that we don't have mistakes because the office is responsible for the emails that you're sending out, and if you make mistakes, it looks bad on the office. We want to make sure that this piece of professionalism is done correctly. Understand when it's appropriate to reply all to an email or reply to one sender. This will cut down on others' emails when information is not relevant to others.
That's a really good point. There's a really good example where, say you're ordering stuff in the office and someone's asking for your order. You're not going to reply back to all 25 people that are being asked. You're going to respond to that person who is asking for your order. Now we're going to talk about communicating via telephone. Be sure that when you're on the phone that you are pronouncing your words clearly and concisely. We want people to be able to understand you as much as possible, especially if the information that you're giving them is important. Don't rush. Make sure that you're taking your time and try to reduce speaking too fast. That also has to do with not being able to understand. If you're speaking too fast, someone may not be able to understand you, or they misunderstand you and think you said something else. Be sure that you are taking rest between calls. If you're working somewhere and there are a lot of calls being made, be sure that you take a short break and relax, and then you can resume.
So we want to make sure that we listen carefully and repeat back what we hear. This will cut down on frustration when communicating. We want to make sure that we repeat back so that the individual knows what has been communicated was understood correctly and the information is correct. When we don't do this, we often make mistakes and might complete a task that we weren't supposed to because we didn't understand the process. So being able to repeat back helps us listen and make sure that we are understanding of what the information is requested of us. We also want to be organized. If you're making a phone call all the time, have a script so that you know exactly what you're going to say and you can feel more comfortable. We want to make sure that we're smiling on the phone. This might sound silly and we can't see each other, but smiling on the phone makes it sound like we are happy and in a good mood. This can go a long way when we're doing customer service in the workplace.
A couple other tips can be keeping a notepad and a pen near you when you're on the phone in case you need to write down notes, and to be sure to let the caller hang up before you do.
Now we're going to share some tips for meetings in the workplace. We want to make sure that we show up on time or early to the meeting, staffing and training. By doing this, we know that we're prepared and we're not rushed coming into the meeting. We also know that we'll have a seat in the meeting, and that by showing up early, we're not interrupting the meeting when we're late. And this looks unprofessional when we're showing up late to meetings, and it Also, it may appear that we do not care, and we don't want to have that happen. Don't show up empty-handed to the meetings. Bring a notebook or a computer. When we show up with nothing in our hands, it might seem like we don't care about the meeting and the meeting is not important to us, but by bringing a notebook or a computer, it looks as though we're being engaged and we want to participate in the meeting. Stay off your phone during meetings, even if others are on their phones, being professional and respectful. So if other people in the office are on their phones, that is up to them and they can make that choice. But we as student employees, we should be off of our phones when we're in the workplace and show professionalism during meetings, trainings, or staffings.
Be sure that you're following along with the agenda if one is provided and that you're staying on topic. You should also be actively listening during the meeting so that way you do not ask questions that have already been answered. I know I've been in a meeting before where we addressed our positions and our roles, and I had mentioned that I was a student employee. Throughout the meeting, we had talked about how important it was to have students interact with full-time staff members. Someone ended up saying that there were no students during that meeting, and they were very embarrassed whenever we had all said that I was a student employee and that at the beginning of the meeting, we had mentioned that. That person did not listen, and it does become more embarrassing. You should also be participating in the meeting if the opportunity presents itself. Be sure that you are active and that you are speaking up because your voice matters.
Now we want to use an illustration to help us think about how we should communicate in the office. We use the word think. So if we look at the word think, we can think of the T as, is it true? Is the information that I'm about to say true?
When we see H, we can think about, is it helpful? So is there something that I can help someone with? Or is the information that I'm telling you going to help you in the long run?
Then we can look at I, is it inspiring? Is what you're going to say going to bring up the office or bring down the office? Is it going to be helpful in the meeting? Is it going to encourage people to do a better job? Or is it going to make people complain?
N, is it necessary? Is what you're saying necessary, or is it complaining or gossiping? Is what you're saying needed in the office?
And K, is it kind? Are we using kind words in the office? Are we talking about other people in the office, or are we uplifting people and making sure that everybody feels included in the conversations in the meetings? Making sure that we're using kind words can go a long way in the workplace.
Just be sure that you do have time to think. Our next slide, we're going to be talking about speaking like a professional. You should be speaking naturally. Use a steady, calm tone and avoid uptalk when emotions are high.
When we think about uptalk is when our voices get high or they get loud with our emotions. We want to refrain from letting our voices get too loud and our emotions getting too high when we're having conversations.
Staying calm under pressure is extremely important. Take time to think before answering. And if you don't know the answer, be honest and then follow up.
Speak in the active tense. Own your actions. This will show responsibility and confidence. If you're having a conversation with a supervisor and you have a good idea, be confident in that idea and share it openly. This shows that you're confident in the workplace and that you feel like a professional and you're sharing your opinions. We want to make sure we use short, clear, declarative sentences when in a professional setting. Avoid fillers, like, and to make a long story short. They don't add anything and can be distracting. Make sure that we're talking in a confident and professional manner in the workplace.
Another point is body language and facial expressions. Be sure that you can read a room, and if the body language is reading one way, be sure you're sticking with that. Also, make sure that you're controlling your facial expressions as well. On this slide, we're going to be talking about resolving conflict in the workplace. Be confident when you are speaking with your supervisor. Just because you're a student doesn't mean your voice doesn't matter. Work with your supervisor to develop a plan of change. If you are conflicted with your schedules and you have too much homework, be sure that your schedule at work is less because you need to focus on being a student first. Be willing to compromise and work together, and be specific when you're making your plan.
Conflict is not the same as complaining. Provide actual information of what the issue is and concerns you have. If you have concerns in the workplace, don't just complain to your friends or other coworkers in the workplace, but actually come up with a solution and talk to your supervisor about it. Don't gossip about the problem with others. Instead, take it directly to the supervisor. You don't want your supervisor to hear from someone else about your concerns that you have. Provide solutions to the problems. Brainstorm ideas for change. Use critical thinking skills and problem-solving skills. This is an opportunity to talk to other coworkers in the workplace. Ask them for their advice and their opinions on the situation. Don't be afraid to talk to your supervisor about the concerns, and maybe you guys can brainstorm together.
Both sides need to be open and listen to the other side. Be respectful and open-minded to different viewpoints. If you don't agree with someone, that's okay. They're entitled to their own opinion and their own views. If you are concerned that things need to be changed in the office and they're not, and you can't get through with your supervisor or anyone above, please be sure to come to the Career Center and speak with us in Student Employment about any issues that you may have. Thank you so much for watching this video. We hope that you enjoyed it and that you learned something from it.
After watching the presentation, think about some of the ways you might have handled yourself in past situations. How might the information that you've learned through this presentation prepare you for the situations in your current job and jobs that you might have in the future? Please remember to complete the short survey to receive credit for the completion of the training. Also, be on the lookout for other future Student Helping Students trainings. Have a great day.